Right, I do believe we are live. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another live stream. It's going to be a super casual stream today. For those who might not already be aware, I'm currently running a remix contest um, where I've given out some samples and asked people to remix those into an original track of their own. The grand prize for this remix contest is going to be a Total Studio 5 Max bundle from IK Multimedia. The second place winner is going to take home a Chaos Pad kit that I have purchased. Hey, what's happening, Gorgeous Roy? Thanks for tuning in. Can you hear my voice okay? And the third place prize is going to take home any sound bank of their choice from my website, Electronisounds. All right. I've started putting together a little version of a remix on my own. This isn't going to count, like it's not an official remix or anything like that. I'm just having some fun exploring the samples and remixing them into a track. And that's what we're going to be messing with today. All right, thanks, Roy. I appreciate that. Hopefully, you guys can hear this track okay. Let's see here. What am I doing? I'm already doing something wrong. There we go. What's up, man? We got Panda the Torture Clown in the chat. What's up? Hey, what's happening? Big John UK. Thanks for tuning in, my friend. It's great to see you in the chat. All right. So this is what I've started putting together. What's up? We got Detro in the chat. D-Trucks. I'm not saying that correctly, hopefully. All right. What's happening, MA? Thanks for tuning in, everyone. It's going to be a super casual stream today. We're just messing around with the samples from the remix contest. I'm trying to use, I'm trying to base my foundation here by using as many of the original samples from the sample pack as possible. You don't need to use only samples from the pack. You can use your own sounds as well, but this is a remix contest. The point is really what you can create that's new and unique by using this as many sounds as possible from the remix pack. I'm going to go over what I've got together here and how I put it together. But the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and save as a brand new session inside of Live. I'm going to go ahead and do a save live set as. And we're going to give this a brand new name. That way, I'm going to be deleting things in a minute and consolidating down to try to save a little bit of CPU. And this way, if I end up needing to go back to this original, version of the track to make any changes or resample something out, that's always possible. And I really recommend that as you guys are creating in a desktop DAW like Ableton or Cubase or whatever you're using, that you get into the habit of being a chronic oversaver and that you save your projects as, different versions. If things are going really well and you're happy with the way that the track sounds and you're about to, keep making a lot of changes, might be time to save as a new version. That way you can always go back a step if you need to. Just a little advice from your Uncle Dean. So I'm going to just save this as, version B at this time so that any changes I make won't affect the original session. And I'm going to go ahead and collect all and save and just make sure that all of the sample files are embedded into this session. All right. Cool deal. So what I want to do is I want to break down the samples that I've used and how I've used them, just sort of one by one. We're going to go through what I've got here. I tried to use, like I said, as many samples from the original sample pack. If you haven't downloaded that yet, there's a link in the description of this video so you can grab the full pack of samples to mess around with yourself. All right. So I wanted to use as many samples from the original pack as I could. So I started out just by loading those into Ableton and seeing what I could create. I wasn't really happy with the original kick drum for the idea that I'm trying to create here. The original samples are at the tempo of 120 BPM in the key of F minor. I wanted to raise the tempo of my remix attempt right off the jump, so we're working at 140 BPM today. And so I loaded the original kick drum in. I started messing with that, trying to like EQ it a little differently or retune it. And I wasn't really happy with the way that it sounded for the vibe that I'm, trying to accomplish here. I ended up detuning the original kick drum down like 2 full octaves, trying to make it like this low, rumbly texture type of thing that I could combine with a second and new kick. So I sort of filtered it down and compressed it and messed with it and then ended up with just this low layer. I'm going to bring that up in volume so you can hear what sort of my intention was just to sort of add some, original personality from the original kick into a new kick drum. But even with the tweaking and the layering that I was doing at the end of the day here, I don't really think that the original kick drum is really adding anything at all from my new kick drum, and I'm going to delete that. But I just wanted to show you, what roads I went down to get to this destination per se. So there we go. Hey, what's happening, Tony? Thanks for tuning in, my friend. All right. So, this is sort of my new kick layered with that original kick. But I just felt that the original kick is just so subtle and so just, in the background that it's really not adding anything to the new kick. And we're just going to go ahead and delete that from this session entirely. So we're working with a new kick drum now, and we're not using the kick drum from the sample pack. I had sort of a similar experience with the snare drum. I wanted to, use the original snare, and I messed with it, and I messed with it, and I messed with it, trying to get it to sound in a way that, cut through this mix, but sounded really good. The original snare here, actually, I'm layering it with a second snare already. So the original snare here was sampled out of a Roland V Drums drum brain. And, it's kind of an old brain, and this sound is a little dated, and I just couldn't quite get it to punch through the mix and stand up to the new kick drum sound that I ended up going with. So I want to show you, before we delete this, though, just how much work I tried to do on this original snare sample to try to get it to sort of fit in the mix the way that I wanted it to. I started out with a Pro Q3 equalizer, and you can see here that I'm doing just an extreme amount of like sonic sculpting with this, right? And I still wasn't happy with it. So I ended up loading a second instance of FabFilter Pro Q3 so I could do more EQ on it, and I still wasn't happy with it. I'm compressing it, and I added a third EQ to try to I'm notching out all these frequencies, and at the end of the day, I tried, layering it with another snare to keep some of the original snare vibe, in there. Because this is a remix. I'm not just trying to write a track from scratch. So the goal is to use as many of the original samples as possible. So you can see I really spent a lot of time trying to shape that snare drum into something that worked for me. But I tried to layer it, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't working for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and completely delete that as well. So we've gotten rid of the original kick drum, and we've gotten rid of the original snare drum. Now, on that vibe, though, about trying to use as many elements as possible, I did end up using the reworked snare drum. I resampled it out with all that EQ on it, and I raised it up 2 semitones, and I've used it as a accent snare here. What do I have to see here? Let me see if I can. I just want to solo. Cool. I just want to solo these drums. So now what we're hearing, I actually want to mute this ride symbol over the top because we're not really ready for that yet. All right. So here we've just got a kick drum, a really fat kind of Skrillex, Jack U snare type of sound, like a totally different drum vibe than we had from the original, remix, not remix, from the original track, which is like just a 4 on the floor, sort of dubby techno drum line at 120 beats per minute. Tony says he layered the kick. Yeah, right on, man. All right. So this is the drum groove that I came up with. I am using the original hi-hats from the mix, all 3 of those. What do I want to do here? There we go. I want to turn off the kick drum and the snare so that we can just hear these hi-hats and shaker. These are the sounds from the pack. This is the V drum shaker sound, which we sampled out of that Roland V drum brain during the first session. For those of you who aren't already aware, I started making this track over in a big Euro rack system over here in the studio. And then all of those sounds got, rendered out into this sample pack. But we started creating this track on another live stream. So if you want to go back a couple of weeks on my live streams, you can check out the original stream where we started putting together the original sounds and sampling these sounds out. So that's what we're hearing here. These hi-hats is the V drum shaker, and then a closed hi-hat and a little bit more open hi-hat sound from an Erica Synths hi-hats Euro rack module. All right, and so let's see if I bring in the kick again. This is just a kick from one of my sample packs. The main snare is just a snare from one of my sample packs. And then I've added a second accent snare, which is just like another kind of Jack U snare. 2, 3. And then we've added that resampled snare line as well. So I've got 3 tracks of snare drums going on here. I'm sorry, I said snare drums. I meant hi-hats is what I'm trying to discuss specifically here. All right, so I think the drums are sounding, pretty solid here. I spent quite a bit of time yesterday trying to build this foundation and getting it as strong as possible for us, to work with today. I don't often produce on the headphones, so yesterday I was able to, get this foundation built while using my monitors, which was really nice as well. Okay, so those are the drums, and so far I've taken quite a bit of melodics from this as well. If I unsolo the drums here and I solo, I've got a melodic bus here where 3 melodic elements from the original pack of samples are being combined together. There's a band pass chord sweep, which is like a long, let me play that here, the original sample. I can bring up the volume on those just a little bit. Cool. So I took this band pass chord sweep, which kind of filters down with the band pass filter, and I created a new type of chord stab line using that by just chopping out one little stab from that pad sweep, and then another little stab, and then reversing the second one. So on this track, there we go. On this track right here, we're now listening to that chopped up band sweep pad. Try to, I really want to just, there we go. So it goes back and forth between a stab and a reverse hit, and it sort of fades in and out. We've got quite a bit of reverb and delay on this that I've added inside of Ableton. So just a little chopped up hits from that. And then If I unsolo that and solo the Prophet pad, I've got a long extended pad sound in the pack that I sampled out of a Prophet synthesizer on the first live stream, and in its original form, it sounds like this here. Just a nice long sustained pad sound with a little bit of filter movement as the filter kind of opens up. So I took that original pad sample and I loaded it into Ableton here. But what I've done on that is quite a bit of processing. The very first thing that I did was I added a bandpass filter, and I'm using a rhythmic LFO to move this cutoff frequency and get a little bit of like rhythmic modulation happening in that pad sample. Let me show you what that sounds like. Yeah. So you hear that sort of rhythmic element here. And if we look over here at the bottom left, I'm used to having gear and a camera so I can like point to stuff that I want to show you. Here I'm having to use the mouse. It's a little odd. I'm not used to live streaming on Ableton. So we're adding a little bit of rhythm. And when that rhythmic pad plays against that other chord sample that I trimmed out from the band sweep pad, we start creating a little bit more of like a dub techno frequency texture, right? With some stabs and some rhythm, all happening just in the melodic elements. Lastly, I added one more sample. It's a dark stab chord sample here, and I'm going to solo that at this time. In the original pack, it's a longer sample. I went ahead and shortened it right up, and I'm adding quite a bit of reverb and delay from Ableton to it. So on the downbeat of every 8 bars, I've got that big dark stab. And the original dark stab sample sounded like this. So it's very similar to the original. It's being filtered a little bit, like EQ'd a little bit per se, to get some of those low frequencies out of the mix and to boost a little bit of those high mid frequencies. To kind of give it a little bit of a different personality. And when I blend all 3 of these melodic elements together, we get quite a nice background wash for like a dub techno kind of vibe. So we've got that sort of a texture all built up from the original samples. And then the last thing that I did was I added some effects sounds. Those of you who are familiar, with my tracks will recognize these right away because I use them in just about every track. So we've got like a noise impact sound to kind of, set off the transitions of the track. And I've got a sort of sidechain pumping noise riser that sort of blends into that, noise crash. So it helps with the ebb and flow of the groove. Here's the riser going into that. Just a little bit of an accent over the top of everything. So if we listen to the whole groove again, I think this is a pretty cool foundation to work from. Start, making something. What's happening, Lo? Great to see you in the chat, my friend. Thanks for tuning in. All right. But the first thing that I want to do today is I want to start condensing some of these tracks and consolidating some of these sounds together so that they're a little bit easier to work with. And I'd like to start with the hats, I think. I want to take, this is going to be just like, tedious, busy work for a little while. This stream isn't necessarily a tutorial. We're just, taking time and fleshing out this remix that I've put together. It's just a casual example of like another vibe that can be created using these samples, and hopefully get a little bit of inspiration before. Yeah, you never use that noise impact, Tony. We use that all the time. Okay. So what I want to do is just like start consolidating some of these to make my work a little bit easier. Like for example, here I've got two hi-hat tracks, the original closed hi-hat and the original open hat, and they're on two different tracks, and each track has its own settings and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to group these hi-hats together real fast, and then I'm going to add a track here that is not in that same group. Going to make sure that track is out of the group. Cool. And I'm just going to let's see, this is group 9. So I'm just going to resample the closed hi-hat and the open hi-hat into one track really fast, so we can just save a little bit of room and try to get like our screen real estate that much more usable. So I'm going to tell it to record from that group. I think that's all we need to do. Yeah, cool. Get like 8 bars of that. Cool, so there's those two hi-hat tracks combined together. So if I remove those from playing but leave the newly recorded track, yeah, everything sounds the same. That's great. So I can delete these two original, come on. Why don't you want to delete you? Oh, because that's the last track in the group. Okay, so I'm going to call this combined hi-hats, and I'm going to throw that, make sure that's in the group, and now I can probably get rid of that. Yeah, cool. So I've got this combined hi-hat on one track alone now. So that saved us a little bit of screen real estate, and the plugins that were on both of those hi-hat tracks, like I had two different EQs and stuff, now those are both gone. So we saved a little CPU, and I can actually rename these so it doesn't say audio, but that it says combined hi-hats. I definitely encourage you to label your stuff. I know a lot of people just hate to take the extra few seconds and label their stuff, but as someone who's been at this for many, many years, there will come a time, if you're at this for many, many years, when you need to open up a project from maybe 6 months ago or a year ago or even 6 years ago, right? And you're going to start running into things where like things won't load, nothing is labeled, you won't have any idea what's going on with that session, because you're probably making a lot of sessions, and as the years go by, there's no way you're going to remember. So if you need to load something back up again ever, which you will if you're at this long enough, just do yourself a favor and label your stuff from the get-go, so that when you need to go back to something, you're not just completely lost in a sea of unlabeled nonsense. Or don't. You do you, but definitely it's something to really keep in mind. It's not that big of a deal until you need to come back to a project from a few years ago, and if nothing's labeled, you're going to be like, oh my god, why didn't I label any of this? So we're going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to go ahead and save at this time as well. Label and save, yeah, straight up. Tony knows what's up. All right. So we've got those hi-hats on one track. I don't actually, I grouped this together unnecessarily just so that I could resample it, right? So I can actually, how do, if I, no, that's the wrong way. I accidentally double grouped it. Can I right click on this and ungroup tracks? Because that's what I want to do. But before I do that, did I have some? No, I did not. Okay, great. Just want to make sure I wasn't deleting an effect on that bus or something. Okay, because I do have, I made another group just so I could resample. For those of you who don't know about groups, I'm just being anal and trying to get the work done. Don't even stress about it. Cool. So the shaker is on its own track, but it's kind of hard to see because it's this tiny little sample. So let's go in here and just make a quick change so that we can visually get a better visually we can get a better view, I'm just going to consolidate those shakers into a track by highlighting what I want to make one solid track and hitting Control J on my keyboard. It's going to consolidate that. I'm going to rename that so it deletes that silly date crap at the end, so it's just called V Drum Shaker, and then I'll delete that over there as well. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the ride symbol. Instead of having a whole bunch of individual hits, I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to condense that ride that I've added. This is the ride from the original pack of samples. I believe we sampled this ride out of that Roland V Drums brain as well. And I'm going to save as well. So we've got that section cleaned up a little bit. I was able to combine the two hi-hat tracks into one, and now we can kind of get a better visualization as to what's happening there as well. I'm going to rename the kick track from the name of the sample, which was Love This One, to, kick. And we're just going to go ahead and do the same thing with our kick and snare that I just did with those hats. Instead of having just a whole bunch of, individual hits, I'm going to highlight all those and I'm just going to consolidate those into actual pieces of audio. I just find that it's a little bit easier to look at this way. And we can continue chopping this up and reconsolidating it as we need to inside of Ableton. Hey, what's happening, DJ Emo? Yeah, I hope your transients are treating you kindly. I was actually struggling with the transients on this mix, and I was working quite a bit with the Native Instruments transient shaper yesterday. I'm trying to put this together, so that's an interesting comment there for sure. Let me go ahead and just make these tracks a little bit smaller and this bus a little bit smaller. I'm just trying to kind of get everything on the screen so that I can see it all at one time, maybe as we sort of get started today. When I showed you guys what we've got to begin with, I wanted everything to be as big as possible, excuse me. But now I just want to, get into that work mode where I'm just trying to bring everything to where I can kind of see it at the same time. Cool. All right. So there we go. We've got, what is this here? What is that? Accidental audio recording, but we don't need that, so I can go ahead and delete that. Oh, I see I've got that on. And we're just going to go ahead and delete that extra track for now as well. Cool. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go File, Collect All, and Save. And I feel like we're pretty well, wrapped up here. We got DJ Emo saying try the drum bus some stuff and tweak the transient dial. The drum bus is absolutely mystical. It is. I totally agree, and I'm using it here on the drums. Let's take a listen. I'm going to go ahead and just solo the drum bus. So we've got all the drums here, except for that ride, which I'll turn back on there. And I'm processing all of these drums through like a utility, a little bit of EQ, just to trim off some low frequency content. A second EQ, which I think I'm boosting some mid content. Little tiny bit of a glue compressor to sort of compress these drums together a little bit. And then the Ableton drum bus. And I'm using it in a subtle way, not an extreme way, but listen to what happens if I turn the drum bus off. Everything just kind of gets weak and like sounding like it's a little muddy and pushed back. Tony says, I love the drum bus. Yeah, right? It just makes this huge difference in what we're doing with the sound here. Ableton drum bus. It's a stock plugin. It's an awesome plugin. If you're not a plugin, but a stock plugin. If you're not using it, definitely check that out. All right, so I don't have any bass going in my mix at this time. We might be able to add some bass today. I tried to see like what the original bass would sound like, because I'm in the same key as the original track. So let me just play you that at this time, like what those bass loops would sound like here. I'm going to go ahead and just mute the melodics so we can hear. It's not like this doesn't go, but it's a little busy kind of like 16th note bass, and I think I'm hearing more of like a sustained bass type of sound over this. I mean, all the bass loops work, and Ableton stretches them to the new tempo, but it just doesn't really, give the vibe that I'm trying to go for in this mix. So I won't be using any of the original bass stuff. I will try to maybe squeeze in a little bit more, like we have a stab loop from the original sample pack, and we have some other chord stabs here, which I might try to squeeze in along the way. Yeah, Tony says, I had a hard time with the bass samples. Yeah, I hear that. What I should have done in making the pack is just recorded a nice sustained bass sound out of there. But I didn't, realize that we were going to be getting to this point with the track when I started creating it. Okay, so what let's do is I've got an extra synthesizer set up today. This is the Arturia Mini Freak. Just a fun synthesizer, and I thought it might be fun if we tried to, find a sound or two that we could add to what we're creating using this. So if I add an audio track inside of Ableton and I arm that track for recording, this is like just a lead sound. This is preset 258. It's called Big Dipper. Yesterday I thought maybe this kind of gelled a little bit with what we're creating. And I want to stress that about my workflow. A lot of people, like especially these days, when they start going live on YouTube, their goal is like, I'm gonna write a track from start to finish in like an hour, and I'm gonna, show this audience like what's up. Like that is not my workflow at all. I don't push myself to try to get things done in like an hour or like 2 hours. I'm more of a fan of putting in the hours per se. So, like, I don't have an idea necessarily of exactly what I want to do today. It's not all planned out. We're going to add this bass and we're going to add whatever. At this point, once I've built a foundation that I feel is like a solid foundation, then I typically go into the mode that we're sort of in here today, which is like an experimentation mode. And I'll, pull different sound sources together. I'll maybe scroll through some virtual instrument sounds and just kind of see if I can just randomly, happy accident style, discover some other like sounds or textures or vibes that might work with our track at some point. I'm not really thinking about arrangement yet, and I'm not trying to like, here's our intro, and then we're going to go into this, and then I'm going to do a riser, and we're going to go into this, and then we're going to do a break. All I'm doing right now is just experimenting and trying to collect some more possible sound sources that might or might not end up into the final version of this track. And I find that this is really the place in the production stage where you can allow yourself that creativity. I spent quite a bit of time putting together this foundation and getting the sounds, to gel really well together. So by default, anything that sort of gels over the top of this is probably sonically, especially because I'm working on headphones today and not the monitors, it's probably a safe bet, and I'll gather a bunch of material that may or may not end up in the final track. DJ Emo says, we noodle out and a track might say hello along the way. Yeah, that's a great way to put it, my friend. I like that. He says, I live jam ideas on his streams using the TR-8S and a synth into Ableton and play them along the way. Yeah, right on. That's what I'm talking about. Cool deal. Thanks for being here during the stream, guys, and hanging out. All right, so let's play the groove that I've got going, and I'm just going to kind of casually noodle around to see if anything kind of jumps out with this sound and whether we want to record this in or not. All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm still liking that. I mean, it's kind of a distinct vibe. Maybe this will end up in the final version. Maybe it won't. I'm currently running only 18% CPU, so we should probably be able to record in without much difficulty. If I go to the buffer size, looks like I'm at 512 samples, which is a huge buffer. I wonder if I can get away with going down to a much lower buffer and getting a lot lower latency. Let me try a buffer size of 64 samples for doing this bit of recording. If you don't know about buffer sizes and stuff, like, don't even worry about that nonsense. Yeah, we should be fine. Lowering that buffer, though, from 512 down to 64 samples has increased our CPU by like a third. So now we're like running at like 30 some CPU. All right. Tony says he thinks it fits. Cool, man. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and record. And then when it flips around, whoops, I'm assuming that you guys are seeing what I'm talking about. Let's see what happens here. Did that work? I don't know. Let's find out. Yeah, I need to learn that. DJ Emo makes a great point here. He says hit the capture button. Some of the notes you pressed jamming were good. They are already captured. The thing is that this is just audio. I do have a MIDI out from Ableton going into the MIDI in of the Mini Freak just to try to keep its tempo sort of close. It's not, super accurate, but sort of close to what the tempo is in Ableton. But I'm just literally recording in raw audio. It's not MIDI. Is the capture for MIDI? Top Wii box square. Yeah, I need to absolutely figure that out. There is a capture mode similar to what you're describing on the Roland SP404, and that is super awesome. Like it's always recording the audio. So if you play something that sounds good, you can just hit capture and it'll just be there. As long as the track was armed, it captures. That's awesome. Yeah, I have to. That's a really awesome shortcut. I need to dig into that for sure. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate it. So I'm just really quickly fading out the edges of the audio that we just recorded to make sure there's no, extra clicks and pops that we're not aware of or something. Whoops. And then I'm going to duplicate that across. And I'll rename that track. So something that I think is, important is that when you're recording in something from an external source, like if I want to go back, like say a week from now and record another part of that same sound or something, would certainly be handy if I knew exactly what sound that was, what preset number we just recorded. So that's how I'll label this track name. I'll label this Big Dipper, which is the name of the preset, and then I'm going to put a number after that, which is the preset number inside of the Mini Freak. So Big Dipper 250, and then I'll just really quickly rename these as well so they don't say audio, but they say Big Dipper 250. And then I'll go ahead and do a collect all and save to make sure that I embed the audio that I just recorded into this session file. Now, it's not like Ableton crashes a lot or anything like that, but you never know. Like, what if I'm running the air conditioner and my wife starts running the dishwasher and she's got another air conditioner on downstairs or something, and it's like suddenly the power blows, then I've lost everything in the session. So you just want to really, be a chronic oversaver so you don't end up having to do stuff twice, DJ Emo says, look up Ableton take lanes also. Definitely handy for your workflow. I appreciate that. I'm seeing actually that's sort of showing up here. I haven't been using this new version. There's something actually in there that I don't put that weird pencil tool on. I don't want those to be there, and I'm not sure how to. Can I just delete those? Okay, for now, that's awesome. Great. So we just have the one audio. Yeah, I really need to learn some of these new features and stuff. I'm not often using Ableton these days. I'm really using hardware a lot more, and keeping up with the new features and the updates has been a little difficult per se. I just want to go ahead and put this the same color as the rest of my melodic content so that when I look at the screen here, visually that I can see that it's the same. And I'll move that track up with my other, whoops, those are the snares. So let's try that again. Then is it this one? Cool. And then, there we go. All right. Make that a little bit smaller. Let's go ahead and drop an EQ on that track that we just recorded. You guessed it, it's going to be the FabFilter Pro 3. And this is how I work. Like, I don't want to, if there's something that I know I'm going to need to do later on, like check the frequency content on that track we just recorded and make sure that no, sub-frequencies are sneaking through it all. Like, I'm going to do that right as I record it. A lot of people find this type of workflow like tedious, but if I know that I'm going to go back and check these later, like, might as well just, do it now. So I'm just going to remove any low frequency content below, like around 100 hertz. Maybe even a little more. Cool. And I currently have 3 different effects sends in this. I have a Arturia Rev Intensity. Am I on the right window here? Great. I have an Arturia Rev Intensity on effects send 1, and that's a reverb. On effects send 2, I have a FabFilter Pro R, and this is another reverb. The setting on this one has a longer tail than that Arturia Rev. And then I also have a third send, which is running to the Arturia Tape Delay 201 with quite a lot of intensity. So the feedback is sort of feedbacking over itself quite a bit here. So let's go ahead and assign just a little bit of these effects sends to that new sound to try to get it a little bit more in the same acoustic space as the other melodic sounds in the mix. All right. So that's the Big Dipper 250. And I'm just going to add a little bit of that default reverb and the second reverb and some of that delay. Bring it down in the mix by like a decibel. Oh, we got DJ Emo with a great suggestion here in the chat. On that pluck, maybe try an auto pan to move it around, slow, fast, or subtle. Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. I'm going to go up here to the audio effects section, and we're going to add an auto pan. We're going to drop it on that Big Dipper sound here. Let's bring up this amount. One of the numbers, that's like my kind of personal number, is 333. So oftentimes when I'm working, I'll set things to that number because that's just kind of like my number, you know what I mean? So let's do that. And I'm going to bring, let's see, I'd like the rate to be synced to tempo. So we're going to change this rate from hertz to like beat sync. And now I can, make the tempo of the LFO really slow or really fast. And let's make it like, I don't know, like every, 2 bars kind of do its deal. And I'd like just a nice triangle shape on that. So it's just a really smooth panning about. All right, give it some life and space. Should be nice. Yeah, thanks for that suggestion. All right. That's a really great suggestion. And these are the kind of things that will take your mixes to the next level. If you can find, just a little bit of something special to add on top of your tracks, like just a little bit, This is some subtle automation to help give some life and movement to that. So definitely a great, idea. Yeah, a little bit of movement happening in the stereo field on that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and collect all and save real fast, and then I'm going to mute that new track that we just recorded and start scrolling casually through some more presets here on the mini freak and see if we can find another sound or two that might sound okay in this track. This is the kind of experimentation phase where, I mean, I don't know what all of the sounds in this synthesizer sound like, and I'm certainly not going to sit here on a live stream and start trying to program a sound from scratch. So this is a fun, kind of experimentation stage that I really enjoy. Oh, so to hear the synth though, we are going to need to make a track in Ableton to hear that. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit Control T to add a new track. We're going to bring the input on that to inputs 1 and 2 where I've got the synth routed. Cool. And now we can just sort of mess around. There's some keys. Oh, wait. Yeah, nice vibes on that, right? Okay, cool, right? So, I mean, it just happens to be another lead sound, kind of, that sounds kind of neat. Since I'm recording audio, I need to make sure when I'm playing, and not MIDI, so I need to make sure that what I'm playing is like really rhythmically on. Obviously, I can shift some notes around after the recording, but it's not as easy as with MIDI. Emo says, using that external device Ableton tool, we can find better for latency. Yeah, I totally get that. I'm just playing it live today, sort of a deal. I think what I'm going to do is maybe just like noodle over this 16 bar groove a little bit and just, keep some audio from this recording so we have it. I don't know how else to say it better than that. Let's give it a go. Really trying to pay attention specifically to playing the notes rhythmically correct here. All right, let's see. I'll just let that ring out, so we'll get that in there. Maybe another response, right? Plain chord there. Let's get a lower octave, one of those. I think I hit a bum note there. Let's try again. Something way back in the mix. All right, I'm gonna play a little bit more rhythmic stuff now. See what happens. We'll let that phrase ring out a little. Yeah, we need a bass for sure. Just some sort of accent parts that maybe I could put in here. Maybe one more. All right, so we've got some stuff there, and yeah, those multiple takes and stuff, interesting, but that's really not my workflow. I mean, I might be able to get that into my workflow at some point, but really my workflow until, I mean, up to now per se, has just been to sort of record and sort of keep everything on, one track so that I can keep it in in my view of where it goes per se. I think that actually would want that to start right about there. So there's just some more audio that we've collected, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn that. I'm gonna turn off the input on that so we don't accidentally record over it. And I'm going to go ahead and go File, Collect All, and Save. Cool. So we've got two extra tracks now of some new audio parts that may or may not make it into the final mix. For anyone who may just be tuning in, I am hosting a remix contest, and that's what we're messing around with today. We're messing around with some of the samples from this contest. My track isn't like an official contest entry or anything like that. I'm just seeing what I can make with the samples. The first grand prize, the first place winner, is going to take home a Total Studio 5 Max bundle from IK Multimedia, and this has over 70 plugins. I cannot wait to see who's gonna take this one home. This is going to be a total game changer for someone. The second place prize is we're going to give away a Chaos Pad kit that I've purchased myself. I'm not sponsored by Korg. This one is one that I purchased with my own money. And the third place prize winner today is going to take home any sound bank of their choice from my website, electronisounds.com. All right. So if you don't have the samples yet, there's a link in the description of this video to the video on my YouTube channel here, which will give you the link to download those samples. Definitely get involved in this contest. I can't wait to see who's going to take home that IK Multimedia bundle. As you can see here, you can add your own sounds to the mix. To your remix, but you're definitely going to want to really focus on the sounds that are included in the pack. That's sort of the point of a remix contest. So let's go ahead and we'll leave that track that we just recorded for now. And what I want to do is I want to get a little bit creative with like another section. Actually, before we move forward, let me do what we did last time and label the track inside of Ableton with these information of the preset that I used to record it from the Mini Freak. So I'll just label that track. This sound is called Shifter, and it is preset number 255. So I'm just gonna, get that right into the track title, and then I will rename this with it so it doesn't say audio but actually has that information. All right. DJ Emo says that he downloaded the pack and was using it on a live stream. Well, that's awesome. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so what I'd like to do next is on this pad sample. This is the original Profit pad from the sample pack, and I was talking earlier about how I've added this auto filter to that to give it a little bit of rhythmic movement. So we can see that this is giving a little bit of LFO movement there. But what we hear is that the pad increases in volume as it plays. It kind of stays steady right about there and then starts to bring the cutoff on that pad up. And it raises the volume on that. And what I'd like to do is actually go ahead and chop this. And I'm just going to bring this pad, this bit of that pad sample over here. And then I'm going to zoom in on just this part of the pad sample, which as you can see is a lot more static looking and doesn't really raise in volume. I'm going to zoom in just to the end there, get a tiny little bit of a fade out so we're not getting any click on that. And I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate that section of the pad. Whoops, sorry about that section of the pad, so that in this sort of section that we're creating here, we don't have a volume swell, and that later in the track I can use those, louder and more frequency cutoff opened sections of that recording, and this will help me, with sections of the track. Let's see how this sounds with that pad just saying a little more static and not moving as much in this section. Let's turn that off because that's not like synced in or anything there. Alright, so here's that Prophet pad in the background. It's just sort of chilling now and not raising in volume. And that gives us, we can take that louder section and work with that in another section. And let's do that now. What I want to do to try to work with that is we still need to find a bass somewhere. I'm not sure that's going to happen today because I don't want this stream to go on too long. I know sometimes people will see on my channel like live stream 3.5 hours, like, oh my God, I'm not going to get involved in that. So we've been going for about an hour today, which is a little bit, maybe more palatable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop this pad again, right? I'm just going to like take this sort of meatier section of it where the cutoff on that pad is opening up quite a bit more. And since we chopped the sample, I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to make sure that we get a tiny little bit of fade on the beginning of it. And I'm going to zoom into the end and do the same thing so that our sample will be starting and stopping on the zero crossing and not creating any weird clicks or pops. And then we've got that now, and I can go ahead and just duplicate that across. And so if I loop this section now by just highlighting what I want to loop and hitting Command L on my keyboard or Control L if you're on Windows, we can get a loop there. And now we can hear what this section sounds like, and I can start messing with that Prophet pad in just a sec here. So here we have the pad soloed, and you can hear that it's a little brighter than it is in this other section. So we've essentially taken that one long sample and broken it down into two different sections. I hope that makes sense. Cool. Let's hear it over the drums. All right, now let's see here. If I take off that auto filter, here's what it sounds like. So we lose our rhythmic action and we get a lot more low frequency content. I think I want to put this on a new track to mess with it. Yeah, so I'm going to add a new track. Actually, wait. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to duplicate this track over. And we're going to delete that beginning section. And then on the original track, we'll delete the new section. These aren't, this is just sort of a holding place over here. So we don't have to worry about that extra bit of that original sample. And what I want to do on the duplicated pad channel is I want to delete that auto filter, but leave everything else the same. So that all the rest of the processing will be the same on that sound. But let's use a sort of a secret weapon that I'm going to share today on this new version of the pad sound to try to get it a little bit, more creative. I think Tony probably knows where I'm about to go with this. We're going to go with Cable Guy's Shaper Box 3, which is a multi-effect a rhythmic multi-effect that has a time tool, a drive tool. We got noise, we got filter, we got different filters, we got panning, we got volume, we got crush, we got like a liquid setting, which is like flanging and comb effects. We got reverb, we got width. It's a rhythmic effect that does all kinds of neat stuff. And this is sort of like my go-to happy accident sound design plugin. You can drop this on anything and just sort of scroll through some of the rhythmic presets. And then if anything jumps out at you, you just record that, and there you've got some new stuff. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to see if we can find something creative inside of Shaperbox, some sort of preset or whatever, that does something interesting to this section of the Prophet pad. And let's find out. Let's see here. I just want to... I don't know. Let's just start scrolling through some some presets and see what we can find. All right. So if I solo that, you can hear that this will do all sorts of different stuff, from completely, getting jiggy with it to like just subtle stuff. Here's adding a vinyl texture over it. It's not really what I'm after, but that's an interesting thing. Sort of seeing if anything kind of jumps out to me, right? Like that. That's friggin' dope. Yeah, I totally like that. So let's get that. I'm gonna go ahead and add a new track. And I'm going to record what's coming out of this track, which is, come on now, which is the Prophet pad, but it's really the second one. All right. Post mixer, yeah, that's all good. Let's record that. Cool. Yeah, it's like an 8th ARP mover. So now I'm getting another variation of that pad sound, but we're creating it from the original pad sound. I really think, hope I'm not sending too much level to the stream. I really think that Shaperbox 3 is an amazing tool for getting these, weird, creative, happy accidents. Cool. So now I've recorded that in. Let me go ahead and just mute that for now. And that's just, we'll just sort of keep exploring. So I'll rename this, and we're going to call this Pad Wobble ARP version. Cool. And I'll save, and then I'll just sort of push that track a little smaller, and we'll see if we can find anything else. Just, this is like a creative exploration part of the remix, right? That's a really interesting rhythmic filter preset. Not quite what I want, but kind of digging this. It's a little too resonant sounding though. What if I bring this resonance down and make that not quite as sharp? Ooh, There's some interesting little pieces here that if we were to record this, this could be potentially chopped up and sequenced into some really neat stuff. So let's grab this. I'm going to add a new track, and I'm going to tell it to record from the Prophet Pad track. And let's record that. Yeah, Tony says this has got him rethinking his track. There's definitely some sort of like extra resonant tiny little things in what we're recording here. But that's definitely something that we could go through and like chop out tiny little things maybe. That's why I really like these type this part of the process. You know, this is where I can really get creative and just gather sounds that may or may not work in the final mix. Let me relabel that. That's sort of a noise filter pad version. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and whoops. Whoops. Cool, so I've got that sort of saved that we can go back to later. So we've got the pad wobble version and then kind of like a noise filtered version of it there. I'm going to go up and collect all and save. And you can see that I'm not working on the arrangement. I'm not like, oh, okay, this new part's going to go right here. I'm just collecting sounds that may or may not end up in the final mix. Giving yourself this sort of like experimental freedom in a session, I think is really, really important to just sort of have fun and sort of see what happens. Then with a more clear mind of what you want to make, you after you've done this type of thing, then you can go through a lot of these, recordings and see like what sections you might want to use these sounds in. And some of them might not end up making it into the final track at all, but you've got that content here to work with if you want it to make it into the track. All right, let's keep doing that exact same thing. Let's keep running Shaperbox 3 on this pad here. For those who aren't familiar with Shaperbox 3, I really want you to understand what a powerful sonic shaping and sort of sound remixing tool that Shaperbox is. All right. Let me go ahead and just scroll through some more presets and see if we get anything else. That's just kind of so old school, it's useful, but hey, did I see Rabbit Bat in the chat? What's happening, my friend? Good to see you. I'm liking this, kind of. Ugh, it's so hard not to just record everything, but I'm trying to be really like focused and be like, am I really gonna go back to that? Like, let's pass on that one. Yeah, I don't think we're actually going to get to the bass today. If I start trying to play virtual instruments in this session, that's already got like 25 CPU, we're going to have a lot of latency. So that would, mean that I could try to find a bass in the Mini Freak, but I'm not really sure that's where I'm going to get the bass from for this in the long run. I think we're just going to maybe get a couple more variations on that pad today and probably wrap it up so this stream isn't too long. Ooh. Maybe a little bit more frequency. What if I change the filter type on this to a band pass? Yeah, not quite something we want to use there. Ooh. Again, this is like almost, but not quite. Maybe if I make it. Not quite. Whoa! There's some really extreme presets here with the distortion inside of Shaperbox 3. All just what it's doing to that one pad sound. I really think Shaperbox 3 is a must-have plugin. That's really unique and original, but it's maybe too low in the frequency spectrum to be. I'm kind of liking what it's doing here. It brings the resonance up. Well, too much resonance. Yeah, I'm liking this vibe. If I were to cut some of the low frequency, yeah, see, Tony's getting it. That one snippet is cool, right? Cool. Yeah, let's record that out. So I'm going to make another track, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it to grab the sound from the Prophet Pad track with the shaper box on it, and we're going to just record that out real fast. Cool. So this is giving us 3 different variations on the pad now. Yeah. Cool. And I definitely would EQ that and bring some of the low frequencies out of it if we were to use that. So I'm going to just do that real fast. We're going to call this filter pop pad version because there's kind of some filter pop. Fab Filter Pro Q3, that's my go-to EQ, and should be your go-to EQ too. I love this plugin. I cannot work without this plugin. So I'll just pull everything off below around 100 hertz on that one just by default. And if I solo that, maybe even more of those low frequencies. Yeah. Again, I'm not trying to, get it in the mix or something like that, but just the filter pop. We'll put some of those effects on that by default as well. That'll probably make its way into the final version of the track. I'm gonna rename this. Whoops. There we go. Yeah, I would go in and like trim out some of those sections and maybe create my own, kind of filtered pad, rhythmic version or whatever. Unsolo that and then just turn that track off and then go up and go collect all and save. So yeah, so as DJ Emo was, explaining earlier, I definitely need to add a bass to this. And just I would potentially in a session like this, I would potentially just sort of, spend quite a bit more time trying to create some more variations of that pad sound using Shaper Box. That way, I'm creating new content, but using the existing samples from the pack to create that new content. You could really just keep just like thousands of presets inside of Shaperbox. So you can really just sit there and allow it to keep spitting out, new sonic variations of your existing content. Record anything that you like, and then there you go. It might end up making it into the track or give you an idea to take your track in a different direction. Fantastic. All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. If anyone has any questions before I do that, I'll hang out for just a couple more minutes so you can ask those in the chat. For those of you who've been hanging out and chatting during the stream, I really appreciate you hanging out and chatting during the stream. If you haven't gotten involved in the remix contest yet, definitely do that because, again, someone's going to be taking home some great prizes. You've got until August 23rd to put your remix together. So over a month left to work on putting something together. The grand prize winner is going to take home this awesome Total Studio 5 Max bundle from IK Multimedia, which literally has 72 plugins. I mean, this is going to completely change somebody's, workflow. The second place winner is going to take home a Chaos Pad kit that I have purchased specifically for this contest. Again, I'm not sponsored by Korg. This is something that I bought with my own money. And third place winner is going to get their choice of any sound bank or sample pack from my website, Electronisounds. Cool. All right. Shaperbox can do this neat stuff where it literally adds like noises over your existing, content as well. Yeah, DJ Emo says, I don't want to win. I would love to be the second place winner. I've got a couple of people who are like, second place, second place. Yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends on whether you're kind of more of a hardware producer or more of a, Ableton type of producer with plugins and stuff. A lot of people want that Chaos Pad. I don't have one. I'd like to have that Chaos Pad as well. Trying to decide if I want to record this vibe. I'm kind of liking that with that extra noise rhythm. Yeah, I think we're going to record that out. I might get some use out of that. I like that sound. All right, when it's adding that noise flavor in the background to the rhythm, if I go in there and really EQ this, maybe with a bandpass filter or something, there's a lot of potential here. Yeah. Tony asks, will I be listening to every track in its entirety on the contest stream? Well, that is the intention. I guess it really just depends on how many tracks, how many submissions we get turned in. Yeah, Big John says he's for the second prize too. All right, so I've got a version of that recorded in as well now. Cool, lots of neat stuff. I'm going to call this the noise burst version. Whoops, noise burt. We're gonna get earning in this mix as well then. Okay, so noise burst version. All right, good deal. All right, so I am going to go ahead and wrap it up for the day. I really do appreciate those of you who've been hanging out, and I want to encourage you all just to have fun with this remix. Try to use as many samples from the original pack as possible, but feel free to creatively process those with tools like Shaperbox 3 or filters and EQs and your own reverbs, your own favorite delays, all that kind of stuff. I'm really excited to see what everybody is putting together for this contest. We've got currently like 12 or so entries already turned in, so we're definitely doing this. Depending on how many of entries I have, I would like to play every single entry back in its complete entirety during that stream. If we get enough entries, it might not be possible, or it might end up being like the longest marathon stream we've had on this channel. I don't know. It could be a lot of fun. So definitely grab those samples and take place in this remix contest, my friends. All right. Until next time, take care of each other, everyone. Take care of each other. Thanks for hanging out during the stream, guys.